This is the Lifestyle Builders Podcast, Show 51, Relationship Marketing, Understanding Your Customer. Are you dreaming of a life of financial freedom and more time to spend with your loved ones? Want to build your business to support that dream? You need Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. Become a lifestyle builder at joinlifestylebuilders.com. Hi. So one thing I wanted to talk about with this episode was the genius of people that market to children. And specifically around the craze that has been, I feel like it was a craze that has never gone away, which is the unboxing videos that are on YouTube.
Yep. So for those that don't know. Usually those who are not parents.
or their kids aren't old enough to have found this amazing but chaotic thing called YouTube. There is this trend with YouTube videos where it's literally people buying children's toys and opening them on camera and playing with them. That is the extent of what they do on the videos.
Yep.
And kids are obsessed with them. Obsessed. But if you think about it, what's the most exciting part of being a kid? Getting a brand new toy and getting to open it.
Yep.
And then that first 10, 20 minutes that you play with it is like the best time ever. And then after that, meh.
Well, and here, let's think about it. So I remember when our daughter, she was like, 3 or something, and we were at somebody else's house, and she was watching like a cartoon, and a commercial came on, and she was so confused. She's like, Daddy, what's that? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, what's this? Where's my cartoon? She had no concept of a commercial because we don't have cable. Mm-hmm. But she'd been watching YouTube and stuff, and essentially those are all commercials for the toy, mm-hmm. but it's not in the traditional commercial sense. Yep. It's guised as a video. You get to see this thing, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But I mean, instantly then what does she and every other kid want? The toys they're seeing.
Yeah. And even in our case, she's not so big on like the I want that. She's just obsessed with watching the videos of other people playing with the toys that she likes.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if it's almost like a movie or it's like its own cartoon. She just wants to sit there and watch people play with LOL dolls because it's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I was gonna
say. She
say.
does say like, I want that LOL doll. I want that LOL doll. But it's almost become a weird in-between of where we don't necessarily have to buy the toy.
She gets the vicarious experience of just watching other kids play with them. Yep.
Well, and it's a genius business model for the people that are doing these videos because they get millions of views because kids will sit there and watch them over and over and over again. So they're putting ads on their videos, and then they have affiliate links to some of the toys and stuff on their blogs or their videos. And so they're just making this video one time, opening the toy one time, and then a lot of them will reuse toys that they've had, like that they've opened in previous videos and continue to like make play scenes or put them in slime or put them in another box and pretend to open them and see like, oh, it's a surprise. And it's endless fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, for those who aren't aware of this, the overall topic is called influencer marketing. And basically what these companies are doing, like, so for example, Ryan's Toys Review, yep. This kid is like 6 now. He started making videos when he was like 3, and they made like $15 million last year.
Yep.
But essentially what these companies are doing is sending their product out to influencers. And then if the influencers use them, make a video about it, now suddenly that company has free advertising to that entire audience.
Yep.
So like,
the one that comes to mind is the Cookie Swirl C, because Moose Toys like sends her free stuff all the time. They're the people that make Shopkins
yep.
and Grocery Gang and like all the tiny little collectible things. They send her free stuff all the time because they know she's going to open it live in front of her audience.
So one of the actual strategies we recommend oftentimes is get your product in the hand of people who have large audiences and influencers, because it's one of the most cost-effective ways to market, especially early on when maybe you don't have a huge budget.
Mm-hmm. And the kids' toy market is huge. It's never going away. It's crazy. All right. So to jump into today's topic, what we really want to help everyone listening do is really better understand your customer, because that is the foundation of building your business. The better you understand your customer, the more sales you're going to make, the better products you're going to offer because you're listening to them and what they want, and the more people you can help, essentially.
Well, and ultimately, this is probably the biggest challenge, or one of the biggest challenges that we see with people who are struggling with business. And essentially what they do, they hear like, oh, you got to understand your customer. They maybe do a little bit of research online, or they fill out a sheet, and then they're off to like make their product or make their service. And and when we say understand your customer, like, you need to be inside their head. Like, oftentimes people will come back and say, well, how do I know when I understand my customer? And I say, you
ever do. It's an evolution. It's constant.
Yeah, but what I tell them is, when you go to talk to a potential customer and you already know what they're going to say because you've talked to so many other customers and you understand how they think, what their pain points are, like what they're looking for, what their objections are. You've really got to understand all of those things, and most people don't go deep enough. They scratch the surface. Maybe they fill out a sheet that talks about their customer, but they don't go nearly deep enough, and that's what causes a lot of the issues down the line.
Yeah. Well, and let's talk about that, because everyone out there says, like, oh, who's your ICA? Who's your ideal customer avatar? And like you said, most people have kind of just put it out there and scratched the surface of like, oh, it's this person. And then everyone tells you to do that exercise where you say, you write a story about your ideal customer, and you pick a name and you pick an age and you talk about everything about their life. And everyone kind of thinks like, oh, that's my ideal customer. But what you want to make sure is, like you said, you're going deeper. So it's not just those demographic pieces of, hey, my ideal customer is in the age of 30 to 35 and is a married male with 2 kids, and, you know, kind of all of the outer things. You want to also look inside at the psychographics. So what are they thinking? What are they feeling? How do they kind of do all that stuff?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. So the unfortunate thing, especially for anybody that's come online and started looking for information, what happens a lot of times is that a lot of people are just passing around and regurgitating information from other people. So that whole like ideal customer avatar, or ICA, if you've seen it, what so many people are doing is just taking something they got from somebody else, sharing it and saying you need to do this. But I mean, that's just like the first step. So that's
the easy part to implement.
Yeah. Well, we always talk about with people, like when you're starting your business model, you fill out this lean canvas, right? We did a whole episode. We'll actually link to it in the show notes at tomandariana.com/51 about how to really test and validate your idea. The first step of that is filling out this 1-page business plan called the lean canvas. And one of the boxes on there is customer. But on that sheet, it's only a tiny box. Yeah. The next step is then really blowing that out and saying, all right, let me really understand who these people are. And you brought up demographics versus psychographics. So like 30 years ago or whenever, the only way you could target customers was with demographics, because the mediums that were available were like radio and TV, and basically
that was all they were tracking.
Yeah, well, because like you would put together like a set of TV shows based on who was watching, right? So if anyone's ever stayed home like during the day and watched TV,
horrible.
It's definitely not targeted at like a millennial demographic, right? No. The shows on there are targeted usually to like older people that are going to be home during the day and watch that. Look at the commercials that come on during that time compared to something else. So that's how advertising was done for so long. But nowadays, especially with the internet and all the tracking available, there's so much more around psychographics, which are not the like, are you a male or female, or are you, you know, this age or whatever, but it's like, what are you looking for? What are you aspirationally trying to achieve? Yeah. You know, what else is it that you like? There's so much more information, and it's usually that information that's a lot more valuable than like the demographics. But a lot of people get caught up in that. Like when we first ask them, they're like, oh, it's a 30-35 to male that makes this much. And it's like, okay, that's a good start, but what about all the other stuff? Yeah. Because it's the other stuff that makes them ultimately buy.
Well, and I think you have to look at it this way. If you're pooling people together solely by demographics, you're going to be off the mark for a very large portion of that pool. Because if I look at somebody like me, female, 30 to 35, married mom of 2 kids, I'm very different from a lot of other moms out there. Sure, some of our pain points are probably going to be very similar, but if you're looking for people specifically that are dealing with a certain challenge and you're marketing to all of us, you're either wasting money because you're putting your stuff in front of people that aren't going to click on it, or your message is going to be off the mark because you're trying to talk to a ton of people that fill this one group, and you're not speaking directly to me. So I'm not going to relate to that.
Well, and to that point, the other challenge that a lot of people have is that they don't niche down enough. And so once again, this is another thing that just gets thrown around like, oh, you got to niche down, you got to niche down.
What does that mean?
Most people don't know what that means. And I'm going to give a really good example. So Facebook, multi-billion-dollar company all around the world, right? It started at Harvard. So one school, one demographic, Harvard students. That was the proving ground, the model. And then guess what? Once they kind of proved that that worked,
other Ivy Leagues.
Then he went out to 3 other Ivy League schools and expanded from there. And then the expansion continued, and you can go and follow that. But the whole reason that you want to niche down is just to your last point. You want to be able to really understand and really speak to a specific person.
Yep.
Because if you can't do that, then you're going to be seen more as a generalist, and someone's going to see your messaging or see your product and think, oh, that's not for me. Right? But if you really get down and you're speaking exactly to that person, they're going to be like, oh, this is absolutely for me.
I mean, just look at us, for example, when we had our Startup Academy versus what we have now, Lifestyle Builders. We weren't speaking to a specific person. We had great stuff. We were teaching great stuff. It was all amazing, but we weren't speaking to anybody directly, so it wasn't hitting the mark. As soon as we shifted into this space where we were like, oh my gosh, it's families, it's the people with loved ones, and we changed all of our messaging around that, then people started coming and were like, oh, this is amazing. I've been looking for you guys forever. And I was like, oh, we were just talking to the wrong people and sharing the wrong message.
Yeah, well, and I mean, everything we share here is likely mistakes that we've made, just like that, you know, really knowing. And that's the thing. Most people, they're experts in what they do. They know that. That's not the piece that's a challenge. So building a product or service is usually the easier part. The harder part is really nailing down who that's for and how you serve them. And a lot of times what people run into issues with is they go and think about their product or service first, and then they try to do their customer second. Recommendation we always have is start with your customer. Start with the people that you want to help, or the people that you think have the problem that your product or service solves. Because once you know them, it's going to guide what kind of business, what kind of product or service you make, etc.
Yep. All right, so let's dive into let's dive into that a little bit, what they need. Because everyone says, oh, well, you know, what do you need? The problem with that question is people often don't know what they need, or they aren't aware that they even have a problem. So one of the toughest parts is, how do you make sure that you're asking the right questions and you're actually finding the true pain points, not just those surface problems that people will talk about? So your favorite way is to just keep asking questions, which drives me, his wife, absolutely crazy most of the time. But it is very effective, because if you get your ideal customer on the phone and you talk about, you know, what's the biggest challenge you have right now, and they tell you, oh, I don't have enough time, which is a pretty common one. And then you start to dive in. Well, why do you feel like you don't have enough time? And they give you a reason. And then you just keep, like, for you just keep asking why. Why is that? Well, why do you think that? And as frustrating as it can be to be on the other side of that, those are the ways to often get to that underlying issue. Is somebody just keeps asking you, and you have to actually stop and think in your head, like, well, I don't know. Why is that? And then you say, and you're like, oh, that makes total sense. Like, I didn't even realize that I had that problem. That's what you want to do with your ideal customers, because that's the problem you want to solve. That's the product or service that you want to create to help those people. Yeah.
Well, so to your point, you know, some people see it frustrating. Other people really don't see that frustrating. But at the end of the day, if you do this right, what comes out is clarity. It comes out as... I think I see it frustrating.
It's because it's husband to
wife. Absolutely. Yeah, you don't like me asking you questions. But, like, for example, when I'm on discovery calls with potential coaching clients, it's all just me asking questions. And it's me asking questions to really understand where they're at and if I can help them. But then even if people don't end up, if we decide we're not a good fit to work together, people always thank me and they're like, thank you, because I have so much clarity now. Like, I never thought to ask myself that question or ask it in that way. And because you were kind of walking me through it, I now know what I need and like what's in the way and all of that. So that what I usually use is 5 whys, just keep asking why. But the whole point of that is because what most people see as their problem, or will tell you is their problem, is really a symptom of the real problem. So you've got symptoms and you've got root causes. And oftentimes what happens is that people try to solve symptom problems, and then it keeps coming back because you've never taken care of the fundamental thing that's causing the problem. So by getting down to that root cause, now you can attack what's really the big issue. And this is the difference between just like a transactional solving, which is like, I got a headache, take some ibuprofen. That solves it once, but if the foundational issue is, let's say you're not drinking enough water, it's going to come back. But to have like a transformational solution, you've got to fix that root cause, right? If the root cause problem is you're not drinking enough water and you suddenly start drinking a lot more water, then you're going to take care of that. And the symptoms aren't going to come back anymore. And that's really what you want to understand for your customer, because that's what they're going to really pay for. That's what they're likely going to pay a lot more money for, because the results are ultimately going to be a lot better.
And this is why you need to track all of these conversations that you're having with people, because oftentimes the questions and the responses that you talk about on these market research calls or customer interviews, those are the things that you're going to want to include in your messaging when you then have a solution for people that you're trying to sell. Because a lot of times, if you can walk people kind of through that you just talked about, like, oh, well, this person didn't realize what their problem was, and then I asked them a couple questions and had those responses that a lot of people gave me. Now you're moving people through that customer interview and problem solution right on your sales page, and you'll have a lot more people raising their hands because they're reading through and like, oh my God, that's me. Like, yes, yes, yes.
Well, I was gonna say, so we had one of our trainings. Ironically, we actually introduced a customer avatar for the training. And we had one of our clients go through it, and they literally took a screenshot of it. They crossed out the name of the person, which was like Sam, and then wrote their name in and said, Tom and Ariana, just want to let you guys know you guys are talking to me. And it's like, boom, that's how you know when you've hit it, when somebody is listening to that back and they're like, yep, that's me.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But the other thing with this too is, when you're talking to people, it's important to discern wants versus needs, because the other challenge that we see a lot of people do is they'll ask people, oh, hey, Ariana, what do you think about this idea? And they're like, oh,
that's a great idea.
That's a really good idea.
Sure.
Okay, sweet. So then they ask a bunch of people, and they ask friends and family and people that are being nice to them, and everyone says, yeah, it's a great idea. Then they go spend a bunch of money creating it and nobody buys. So what you want to really understand is this something that they want, but they're not really interested in and they're not willing to commit to? Or is this something that they need? So you want to really understand, like, okay, what have you tried to solve this problem before? Like, how have you tried to solve it? Why is this a pain right now? Why is this something that's really going to cause you a big issue? You don't really know those things until you're asking and you're diving in. And it's like, this is a right now conversation versus just as something nice to have.
Yeah. And I mean, it's incredibly awkward, but even a question to ask when you're posing a solution to people and saying, hey, I might have something that could help you, is the question of what would you be willing to pay for something like this? And a lot of people will shy away from this question because it's kind of awkward. People, the whole money taboo subject, like, you're not supposed to talk about money. But it's a good question to ask, because ultimately you want to make sure that the people you're creating the solution for, number one, are going to raise their hand and like pull out their wallet and be like, yes, I want to buy that. But you want to make sure that you're pricing it in the right spot so that they're not looking at it as, oh, well, they priced that too low, maybe it's not worth it, or, oh, well, they priced it way too high, I can't afford it even though I really need it. So it's a question to kind of think about asking, or putting it in there somewhere so that you get an idea of, hey, not only is this person willing to buy, but this is the price range they gave me. Now I'm putting together all of these potential price ranges that all of these people gave me that are my ideal customers. Can I come out of it with something that really makes sense for both of us?
Yeah, and a quick tip for this, before you even ask them the price, if you ask them what else they've tried to do to solve the problem, you can then go out and research and say, let's say they said they bought this program or they bought this other product and it didn't work. You can now go and say, okay, well, what was the price point on that?
Yep.
You know, because it's going to let you see what are they willing to invest in, what did they already spend, without necessarily asking them what they're willing to spend. Because a lot of times people are going to say, well, I'm going to spend the least amount possible, you know, but this is where when you really dive in and understand, like, what's the cost to them of not fixing this problem or not fixing this pain, that's when you can really understand, like, what is the value that you deliver and how you can price it.
Yep. I like that tip. All right. So let's dive deeper a little bit into kind of that how they think mode, because we did touch on demographics and psychographics a little bit, but this part is really important because you spoke about it in the very beginning. It's like you kind of have to become your ideal customer and really understand the thoughts that are going through their head to better understand the pain points, the problems, how you can solve them. And a quick way to do that is to kind of fill out a template of like, what's the one you showed me that one time? Now I can't remember what it's called. It was the template with like the triangles and the circle in the middle.
I have no idea.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we'll think of it before the end of this episode. But basically, it talks about, like, what are
is the empathy map?
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
What are your customers' aspirations? What are the things that they dream of having? What are their fears that they're, you know, like, what things are they afraid of? What things do they have to overcome? I forget what else was on there. Am I covering it all?
That might be the value proposition canvas.
Okay. I don't remember.
Okay, so the customer...
You give me lots of things.
I know, that's why I had to think about it. So the customer empathy map is more about kind of how they're feeling, like what they're seeing, what they're hearing, what they're experiencing, where the value proposition is really around, you know, what are their pains, and then what are their aspirations.
Okay, so both of those then.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. And, you know, if you guys go to the show notes at tomandariana.com/51, we'll actually link over to some of these things we're mentioning. But really the way I like to do it is, you know, where are you at now? Because we have to understand where people are at today. Then we talk about, okay, well, where do you want to be, right? And then what's the gap? And in that gap, well, we start looking at, okay, you know, what things have you tried to solve this problem before, right? And then you look at, okay, with what you have going on today, what's enabling or helping you to get there? And what's a barrier or what's in the way? Because when you understand where they want to go and what's in the way, now your solution can be solving that what's in the way problem. But you've given them clarity as well as to really where they are and where they want to go. Because sometimes people don't know, like, I got a headache. I can't think of anything else. I just got a headache. So they can't necessarily think of those pieces. But if you understand that, then you can help guide them through that.
Yep. All right, so now that we have deduced which worksheets I was talking about, I swear, people, you don't even know how many things he shows me on a daily basis, and then I have to remember what they're called. Let's talk about what makes people buy, because this was one that I really had to understand, because I'm not a big purchaser of anything, really, so I didn't really realize people have different buying styles, and that was one of the things that I picked up from Jess Lorimer's book, Smart Leaders Sell, was really looking at you as a seller have a selling style, but then the people that you're selling to have a buying style. And a lot of times they might not match up exactly. So you have to kind of learn how to sell things in the way that your customers want to be sold to. So one of those buying styles, which I'm sure a lot of you have encountered.
Before you hop into that, I just want to really emphasize this point because it's where a lot of people get caught and they don't realize it. Like, you just said it perfectly. And we've had these challenges in the past where you don't buy because certain things happen. So naturally, when you go to sell, you discredit those. And you're like, well, I'm not going to do this because it didn't work on me. And it's like, okay, well, it didn't work on you, but look at all the other people out there with that product.
Obviously, I am one of the minorities.
But I mean, like the biggest thing here is we've all got to be careful not to let our own biases and buying styles impact how we can sell.
Yeah, and I mean that was a big shift for me. Like, oh, okay, well that makes a lot of sense because selling was always so uncomfortable. But it was because I was looking at it as I don't like the way a lot of people sell to me, and then I wasn't understanding that people that we're selling to may have completely different buying styles, so they aren't looking at the way that we're selling as weird or awkward. Like to them it makes complete sense because that's how they like to be sold to. So yeah, that was definitely a huge shift. One of the most popular, and you'll see it everywhere in the online space and in general in all of the spaces, is FOMO. Yeah, which is the fear of missing out.
Well, it's not even just the online space. It might be more prevalent.
Oh, no, it's everywhere.
But I mean, like sales, like sale ends Friday. All right, well, if I don't get there by Friday, I'm missing out on the sale. I mean, you know, a lot of what you're going to see.
Stores do it all the time with coupons and discounts. And
well, that's what I'm going to say. You know, if you see people online doing certain tactics, they're almost never new. If you go back and look at the history of all of this, they're in different mediums or used different ways, but these things have existed for forever.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a FOMO buyer.
You're not? Other people may be.
There's a lot of people that are. And I mean, I think that's important to understand as well. But there's other things too where it's not always a, hey, the sale ends, or hey, the discount's only this long, or hey, the cart's closing. A lot of FOMO buyers buy because of bonuses. So it's not that you can't get the product. It's, hey, get the product and get all these extra things. So that's a really popular way to sell to your FOMO customers.
And so here's the thing. I know you talk about online. Let's go talk about QVC. But wait, there's more, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, these tactics aren't new. Like, they've always existed. And this is why, you know, oftentimes when people are stuck or struggling, I always tell them, go look at like a different industry. Go look at a different medium, because you can take the principles that work there and bring them back and apply them to you.
Yep. And then there's the aspirational purchasers. So the people out there that basically they want what you have, or they want what your product can do for themselves, for their own life. They have aspirations to how they want to be, how they want to live. So that's also a very popular selling style, a very popular buying style, because everyone is looking to improve something in their life. So if you can sell aspirationally and use that, you know what your customers are aspiring to, then, you know, you have a better chance of connecting with them.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and so the first time when I dropped $7,500 on that real estate training,
was completely
aspirationally. But guess what? They were also doing FOMO, because the price on that, like, so we'll give quick backstory. If you ever want to learn like sales and marketing tactics, go to one of these events.
Don't take your wallet.
Don't take your credit card. And just watch what they do, because what they did throughout the whole event was basically crafted me and used all of these tactics and strategies. And I mean, there's ways to do these in good ways and sleazy ways. They definitely use sleazy ones. But I mean, looking back on it now, I mean, they set everything up. They made me, you know, I won't lead into the other things you're talking about here, but I mean, they made me fear of missing out. Like, if you bought it that day, it was $15,000. If you waited, it was $25,000. So it's like, oh crap. Well, if I'm gonna buy, I gotta buy today. And then it was like aspirational, like, hey, where do you want to go? You want to be this real estate investor. You want to have this money. You want to take care of your family, blah, blah, blah.
And it was the third one as well, which is emotional.
Yeah, and then
they totally tugged on your emotions the entire weekend.
Well, and not only, and before that, I was frustrated because I wanted to make this stuff happen, and you kept telling me no. And so they knew, and they were tugging on those things, and I was ready to walk away. And yet, even though we didn't have any money, I took out my credit card and purchased. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this stuff is very powerful if you understand it. And unfortunately, what a lot of people do is they look at what somebody else is doing, and then they just try to copy the surface level piece, but they don't understand the underlying intention and what that person's doing. If you understand the underlying intention and craft it to your audience and your offer, so powerful.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of times what doesn't work is when you're trying to sell in a way that your audience doesn't want to buy. They're not going to buy. You have to figure out what type of buyers are they? Are they FOMO buyers? Are they aspirational? Are they emotional? How can you connect with them on those levels so that you make sure not only are you offering them what they need, but you're offering it in a way that they want to buy it. They want to raise their hand and pay you for it.
Well, and to that point, you've got to be comfortable with how you do this. Like, I remember early on, I didn't have confidence in some of the stuff that, and even like from my corporate career, I didn't have confidence in, my ability when I got into a new role. And there was a big difference in how I showed up and how I talked to people then than to when I got confidence. Like, so many people I talk to nowadays, they're like, Tom, I don't know why. We've only been talking for like 5 minutes, but I trust you. I love your confidence and how articulate you are with these things. So a lot of times, like, especially if you're selling like face to face, just how you show up and present yourself is a big part of it as well. And if you understand, like, so for example, a lot of people that talk to me are very skeptical of anybody that helps entrepreneurs because they've been scammed by so many people in the past. So part of what I know is that I've got to truly connect with somebody and show them, like, hey, look, I'm not that scammy person out there. I know you've probably, seen in the past, like, I'm legit gonna help you.
Yeah. But I think that's part of it, though, is you have fully embraced that saying. I don't know who has said it first, but I heard it first from Jess. Selling is serving. What you're selling is meant to help people. So if you're selling from a place of integrity, you're never going to try to sell somebody something that they don't need or that is not going to help them. So I think because you have confidence in what we're doing, what we're selling, and who we're trying to help, people feel that immediately. And it's almost like even people that aren't in our ideal customer avatar pool are still connected to you because they're like, well, even though this guy isn't really who I would normally go to, I can see the way that he's talking to other people, the way that he's talking to me. He cares about other people. So they're like, it's like magnetic. People are just connected to that. When they can see and feel that they can trust you, they want to be around you and hear more from you, whether or not what you're selling is something that they need.
Well, and that's why it's so important that your business is customer focused, and that word you just said, serving. If your true focus and passion of your business is to serve customers, you'll go back to like our first core value is do the right thing, and if customers see that you're truly there to serve them, it's going to make a night and day difference. But in order to be able to do that and serve them, you have to understand them. And, part of that too comes back to, all right, this might be the perfect thing for them, but they've got some objections. And really understanding, okay, what are those objections that might get in the way of them buying this thing to solve their problem? And then part of your responsibility is helping them overcome that. So I don't ever like push somebody into something, but like you said at the beginning, asking questions. Okay, so, you're at this point, this seems like something that'll solve your problem, but what's causing you not to want to go forward with this? Because if you can understand what's going to hold them back, because sometimes it's just self-sabotage. Sometimes it's fear that doesn't even really exist. But if you're not able to really understand that and help them work through it, they might never get to the other side and actually, solve their problem because they can't take that step.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about that subject right there, those objections. That is one of the biggest challenges that most people have with selling, is overcoming people's objections to buying. So, I tried to sell this to the people on the discovery call and nobody bought. And they said they didn't have enough money, or they said they didn't have enough time right now. And, they kind of take those surface level answers as to why people aren't buying at face value. But one thing that I've learned over time, and then just anybody who's an expert or good at sales will tell you, is that the first objection somebody gives you is never the true objection. Just like with the pain points, you have to dive deeper. There's always something else. And I forget what it was now. Obviously, there are times where money is a true objection. People don't have the funds to do what they want to do.
But very rarely is that actually
very
the case.
Rarely is that actually the case, because there are a lot of people out there that don't have the money to buy things that are fun, but they will do that anyways. So it's more of the objection. They maybe aren't sure that they can do it. So they know it's going to take work. They know it's going to take an investment, and they're scared that they're going to put the money out there to do this, and they aren't going to live up to their expectations.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say we did a show with our lifestyle builder Sherry, and we'll link to it in the show notes. But basically, I remember on that show we kind of walked through that sales call, and a big part of what we did was talk about those objections. So if you guys want to hear a little bit of like some common objections that come up, and then like some different ways to overcome them, check out that show, and we'll link to it at tomandariana.com/51. And
then the second deeper objection a lot of times is that they don't have the trust in you that you're going to be able to help them solve the problem. So once you kind of know, like, what are these underlying objections that people could maybe have that aren't the money objection, and diving deeper into what those are and how you can assure them one way or the other that, you know, hey, I know this is scary. I know buying something from somebody you don't know can be a really big challenge to overcome. How can we get you to the point where you're comfortable? And kind of asking those questions, supporting them where they need the support. And ultimately, sometimes you have to give people space. I think Jess is the one who says it's never no, it's not right now.
Yep. And, you know, I think one of the most important things is, and this was a big reframe I had to have several years ago. When you go into a conversation, and anytime we're talking about a conversation, it's the same thing, whether it's on your website and it's like a sales page, whether it's marketing material you have, it's really all comes down to asking the questions and helping them navigate to the right solution. Now, if you've done things right with your business and you've created the right solution, your ideal customers, it's helping navigate there. But for a lot of people, it might just be helping them navigate and then giving them something else if it's a better solution.
Yep.
Like, so for example, oftentimes I'll recommend people go do something else first. Or I'll say, you know, after hearing that, we're actually not the best fit for you. And, you know, another fit would be better, and, you know, here, go and do that way. So if you're really doing it with integrity to say, we want to get the best solution for you, what you're going to find is that more people buy from you anyways. Sure, some don't because it's not a right fit, but ultimately it's going to be a good thing.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the last note that I'll leave this on is one of the lessons that I learned from watching the Ask trainings, which I know you have as a book on today's bookshelf. And it was a really important lesson on learning which customers to listen to. So I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but he talks, it's his Lego story, the Lego company. And basically, you just want to make sure that when you are asking your customers or your potential customers questions around the pain points, the things that they need or want, and the solutions that you might have for them, you got to remember that everyone out there kind of wants to have an opinion on things. So you're going to have a lot of people who raise their hands, who give you feedback, who say, oh, I want this, or oh, it would be better if it was this way. But you want to make sure you're always listening to that with a little grain of salt, because they aren't necessarily going to buy. So if you tailor your service or your product to too many people who aren't the important people, you're going to come out with the wrong one. So you want to make sure that you're zoning in and listening to those really focused, like hyper vigilant fans of yours, those customers that are waiting for you to come out with something because they literally are going to hand you their wallet. Maybe they already have and you've pre-sold it. And those are your loyal customers that trust you, that know what you have is going to help them, and that are going to continue to wait and see what else you can come up with to help them with their next solution and pain point. Those are the ones you want to focus on, because you want to make sure that you're always creating or always evolving your products and services in a way that is going to go in that direction with those people that are there for you right now.
Yeah, well, and this is the problem that I think a lot of people run into, is they look at quantity over quality. So like when you're just starting your business, you want to focus on the people that you know immediately, and because they already trust you and their path to buying is the shortest. And then even as your business grows, you want to continuously focus on the people that are hottest to you. These are people that have already bought, they're already customers. Not only is it way easier to sell to somebody that's already purchased from you, but those people are likely to purchase from you again and to know you and to tell you what they need and exactly what they want. But far too many people out there, and this is very prevalent in like the online space, say like, well, go and build your audience, go and build your list. No, that stuff comes later. You want to focus on your core customers and continuously there. And the only time you're going to expand beyond that is when you've really tapped out your existing customers. And then you can go out and start saying, okay, how do I take people that are maybe a step away and kind of move them in? But far too many people don't focus enough on, to your point, their existing customers and their raving fans, and they're out trying to find all these new people or take opinions from people that will never become customers.
Yep. Yeah. Completely true.
All right, sweet. What do we got?
Oh my gosh, I'm touching things. Hold on. Homework for today. So I'm going to give you the homework of taking the 2 templates that we talked about earlier that I, of course, could not remember the names to, but the empathy map template and the
value proposition.
Thank you. The value proposition template. And just printing those out and thinking about your ideal customers and trying to fill those out to the best of your ability. If you need to go out and do some research, find some Facebook groups where those people are or some forums, and just kind of listen into what people are saying, how they're saying it, and fill those sheets out because it's going to be huge for you to better understand your customers.
Yeah, and my homework's going to be similar. So you're going to take that, you're going to write that down, but I also want you to, and maybe we'll even link to one, we'll see if we've got one. I want you to go and find an ICA sheet, an ideal customer avatar sheet. And what that's going to do is just ask you a ton of questions and get your first thoughts out about your customer. So it's going to be, demographics, psychographics. But then what I also want you to do, actually I'm going to give you 2 pieces of homework now.
Oh man,
this one's even better. If you have customers today, I want you to reach out to some of them and talk to them. Because what happens far too often is we don't talk to customers in the beginning. And then once we grow, we kind of forget to stay connected to those customers. So yeah, 2 homeworks. If you don't have your customer avatar defined, do the first step. If you've already got customers, and even if you don't, reach out to people and talk to them, because you'd be amazed at how much comes out of just speaking with potential customers or existing customers.
And remember, if you are listening and cannot write these things down, no need to worry, because everything will be listed on the show notes page at tomandariana.com/51. So I know that was like multiple pieces of homework this week.
Well, but as we said, this is the foundational piece.
Yep.
And I promise you guys, if you invest time here and you're really going out and understanding your customer and talking to them and continuously taking that feedback and incorporating it in, like, it's gonna propel you past any of your competitors.
Yeah, and if it's overwhelming for you and you're finding like, holy crap, I don't know, just take a first pass at it. Do the best you can, and then go out and just listen in and do your research and talk to some people, and you'll ultimately come back to that form with so much more clarity, and you'll be able to finish filling it out. All right, what do you got today for us on the bookshelf?
So we actually have 2, and actually we're going to introduce Ariana's bookshelf today.
Yay!
So Ariana's bookshelf, I'll let you kind of talk through it a little bit, but I'll give the intro. So Ariana already mentioned the book. It's called Ask. Really good book, and essentially what this is a way to ask your customers questions through surveys to then figure out what they need and start kind of putting them in buckets and building out offers and everything else targeted to those people.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I'm not actually reading the book right now. I am watching the trainings that kind of came with, or we bought extra from this book, which is by Ryan Levesque. So I'm working my way through those, and already, even in just the first video, I'm having like these amazing aha moments. So I know it's going to be a really valuable training for me to work all the way through, and then also have the book to go back and reference this stuff. But yeah, it's definitely great. I'm sure there's some of his stuff on YouTube, so if you want to look him up, do that and just listen to him because he's a genius. And he has really funny stories about Legos.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, that I think is really good that is often overlooked is it's not just about asking questions, because when you do all this, you're going to get a whole bunch of data. And what
How do you sift through
he
that?
does really well in the book is to help you say, okay, you've got now 50 interviews you did or 25 people filled out your survey. How do you now analyze that and put a story together and pick the pieces out? So like in the book, he does a really good job of literally showing you the spreadsheets and like how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a very smart guy.
All right, so then my book for the week is called Lean Customer Development. Build products that your customers will buy. And so obviously if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I'm huge on lean. Lean is all about focus on value, cut out of waste. But this book basically gives you step-by-step for how to go and really talk and interview customers. And just kind of looking through it, here's some of the chapters, like why you need customer development. Where should you start? Who should you be talking to? What should you be learning? Get out of the building. What does a validated hypothesis look like? What kind of minimum viable product should I build? So if you look at this, it really takes you step by step through all these actual who do you target? How do you target? How do you talk to them? How do you ask? How do you analyze the data? So it's more focused on actually having conversations, whereas ask is more focused on like surveys. So both have pros and cons, but I think it's good to look at both of those books. If you're trying to figure out your customers, both of those books are going to give you really some good information and guidance around how to do that.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned Jess Lorimer multiple times and her book. She was actually just a guest on show number 50, so we'll make sure we link to her episode as well, so you can go back and listen to her genius about sales and find the link to her book.
Perfect.
Yeah, lots of books this week. Oh man. All right, you guys, it's been another great episode. Holy dinosaur under the table. I'm sorry, I just have to call that out. We have a child's dinosaur toy under the table, and apparently we moved just right, and it's stomping at us. Things you have to say as parents.
Yep.
It's been another great episode with Tom and Ariana, your hosts and lifestyle builders.
And as always, remember, it's your life, your business, your way. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Are you a Lifestyle Builders podcast fan? We'd love to hear from you. Head on over to tomandariana.com/iTunes and leave us a review.
Are you frustrated by a lack of momentum in your business? Do you want real-time guidance and support from seasoned entrepreneurs who really care about your results? If you're nodding your head or awkwardly shouting yes in public somewhere, then we invite you to join Lifestyle Builders, a mentorship program designed to meet you where you are and give you strategic and custom guidance so you can build the business you need for the life you crave. You can find out more at joinlifestylebuilders.com.
Your life, your business, your way. Join Family Entrepreneur Life. Join Family Entrepreneur